Hi, um, I'm Corey, and I'm with you guys in Family 445. Um, for my learning introduction, or learning teaching interaction number 2, I split it up this time. I realized last time I didn't do it resume style enough, so this time I tried to split it up into the um, two main portions of how I can apply what I learned to class and how I can apply to what I learned from how I have taught class in the past. And for the first part, holding class, I really liked the idea of, I always thought it was kind of annoying how at the beginning of every class they always like defined what you were going to learn, or like in math you did the basic review. Every year you learned the same thing and everyone knew what the definition was, but um, I liked that I learned this time that it's important to have those basic definitions so that everyone's on the same page. So if someone had thought so for family life education, for example, if someone had thought that this word or this term meant something totally different than what you were teaching, and throughout the whole time that you're teaching it, they're applying their misunderstanding to their own life, and they could be applying something totally wrong because you didn't just define it at the beginning. So I think it's important for all classes just to make sure that everyone's on the same page. Say, this is what I'm going to be teaching, this is what it means, this is how you can apply it. I think that was a big, sorry. I think that was a big insight because I always thought that was kind of annoying, but that makes a lot of sense, and I think it can really clear up some problems. Um, Another thing that I learned is that it's so important to incorporate your audience into the lesson by allowing them to apply the lesson to their own lives. But it also, because it helps them to bond with those in the room when they share things. So I think this is probably more typical with girls than guys, but um, when you share things with people, when you share a story or something like that, you feel connected to them. But also, if someone shares something with you, if I told you something about my life, you would probably think, oh, we are closer, or we have something in common. Even if the story itself doesn't connect you in topic, even if you can't empathize or sympathize with them, you still have shared something together, and that connects you. So I think having a classroom where you really encourage people to be open and talk and answer questions is a big deal, because it makes everyone more eager to learn, more open to learning. So that was a big one for me as well. I again, there's things that I always knew, but now that I read about them and really thought about how I wanted to apply them, it makes much more sense. Um, and then about how the Holy Ghost can help you to help others was a big one as well. And this kind of goes into the storytelling as well, but I have taught in public schools, and I used to be a teacher in Mexico, so I've been a teacher in the church. I've been a teacher a lot. Um, so I've had my good share of teaching, and sometimes you're teaching in a classroom and it's of scholarly nature, but you feel the Spirit tell you to tell something about it. And I just think, why is that? Why did I have to tell that one random story about math or something like that? Or why did I share my feelings on this in the middle of math class? Um, and I think that with the Holy Ghost, you don't always understand everything. Sometimes he just pops in and has you do the Lord's work and pops back out, and you never really see the end consequence. But I think it's always important to strive to have that Spirit with you, because it's important to remember when you feel those promptings, it's not, why am I having to say this? It's, who am I helping with? when I speak this, because sometimes I get promptings to say something totally random, but that story could later on, 5 years later, someone will remember it and it could help them get through something. Or sometimes it's an answer to a prayer that's totally random and in the weird way it works for them. So having the Holy Ghost, no matter what your lesson is on, will really help your classroom and really help the people you're trying to help. And I'm not sure which class this was the last year, but we had to watch a lesson on how storytelling completely changes a lesson. And it talked about, they did a study where this guy told a really emotional story about his life, and the people who were listening to it had the same emotional parts of their brain activate as if it was happening to them. So storytelling, for some reason, and you can tell it through testimony meeting, when someone starts telling a story, you immediately, it all goes quiet and everyone starts listening. There's something about storytelling that we really sync with. And so I think it's really, really important to have that in the classroom. And I think that's why Jesus taught in parables as well, as people listen to stories. One thing I wish I did better when I was teaching object lessons, because that really helps people. They have to understand everything and the concepts to understand why the object lesson works. So when you do those object lessons, it's a roundabout way of getting them to listen. And I'm running out of time, so I'll read my last couple. I have a bunch more, but I wish I had done a better job of asking more questions that were really, really in-depth, instead of like, okay, how can this apply to you? Because they can just repeat their answers back. To have questions ready that cause you to maybe be silent for a couple minutes and make someone think about it and really, really work that in their head, because that's what people need. And another big point for me as well was how ethnic diversity is not the only kind of diversity. I always had focused on just ethnic because I was a teacher in Mexico and I helped with ESL in schools. I had always focused on your ethnic race or things like that. But I never thought about how your audience, no matter where you are, has different diversity and all levels of family structure, family morals, the way they were raised, what they believe and have been taught their whole life is right and wrong, could be totally different than the next person beside them. Or their income. People have different levels of income, and that has different opportunities. So that's a good thing to focus on and to remember and aim towards in your classes as well. And thanks for listening, and sorry I talked really fast.